He has known some of the most powerful and notorious figures in show business. And even when he knew they were bad for him, Barry Avrich just couldn't resist being in that world. The Toronto ad man and documentary filmmaker has written his memoirs featuring an alliterative and catchy title, Moguls, Monsters, and Madmen, an uncensored life in show business. And Barry Avrich joins us now to name names, which we are going to do later. Nice to have you in that chair.
Pleasure to be here, Steve.
Let's go back to childhood, if you don't mind, because you as a kid say that you knew you wanted to be in showbiz, and I want to know how you knew that even as a child.
I don't know. From the age of 8, I wanted to perform. From the age of 8, I was surrounded by show business in my house, even though, my parents weren't show business people, but they appreciated the great albums of Sarah Vaughan. They appreciated great movies, Ella Fitzgerald, comedy albums, Woody Allen, Lou Jacoby, all these people. And so I just dove into it. I wanted to know. And
your dad gave you this advice when you were a kid. Just make sure you never blend in.
Yes, that was the result of yet again another fantastic report card where I was nervous about just not doing as well as they might have hoped. And he said to me, you have some gift, I don't know what it is, but you have a gift. Graduate, just get the hell out of the school system and make sure you never blend in.
You eventually become an ad man and a documentary filmmaker. And again, advice from your father. All you'll find in Canada is the film board producing documentaries about beavers. Make advertising what you do with filmmaking on the side. You followed that path, eh?
I did. I've had this schizophrenic life of both film and advertising, and I love both equally, and I think my clients love the cinematic approach to ad campaigns. I mean, this is 30 years of doing it, and everybody always asks, when are you going to start doing one or the other? And it'll be never. I love doing both.
There is a cavalcade of names in this book, and we're going to get through some of them in the time that we have here. And I think the most interesting relationship in your showbiz life has been with impresario Garth Dibinsky.
Yes.
You visited him while he was in jail.
Yes.
For fraud and forgery. How come?
Look, there's no question this is an extraordinarily flawed human being. We all are. He taught me great things in terms of making my own films, making hundreds of commercials for him, how to produce theater, and there was such genius there. And I adored working for him. I was never on the side of tyranny. I was on the side of creativity. So, I felt that I did want to see him in prison at I think, the lowest point of his life. I knew I was making a documentary. I think in some respects I wanted some closure or maybe some blessing to go ahead and make the film. He would never give me that blessing.
In fact, he wanted to produce it, basically.
Oh, he did want it. Well, of course, Garth wants to collaborate on everything at the end of the day, and that wasn't going to happen. It's hard to produce from jail. But I did visit him 3 times.
Did he see the documentary?
He claims he didn't. He claims that his colleagues his fellow inmates did see it, which is hard to believe that that they get HBO in prison. But he claims they saw it. He claims he would never see it. I don't believe him. This is narcissism at a level of forget that.
Having said that, he's clearly had his legal problems. Clearly one of the most creative geniuses in the history of Canadian theater. Would you not say that?
I would say in I would say in the history of theater, period.
Yeah, right.
There's no question, his productions of Showboat and Ragtime in a lot of ways before it got a little overproduced were brilliant, Fosse. And so, I bow at his theatrical producing chops. There's no question. So it's sort of sad to see him out of the picture.
There is a point in the book, though, where you say, I knew he was bad news and I knew I shouldn't work with him, but I couldn't help but want to work with him. How come?
Because it's very difficult, Steve, to get that kind of impresario level in Canada, that those that take risks and have a Hollywood approach to things. I'm vilified. I've never been accepted by the film community in this country because I'm sort of the guy that comes in and takes very populist topics. I'm not the guy making a film about a school bus sinking into a lake. I'm just not that guy. So they're sort of, oh, it's that flashy guy that makes films as a hobby. Well, so you gravitate to people like Garth Dibinsky, and to Michael Cole, the Rolling Stones Uber promoter, because they're just so un-Canadian in their approach of saying, I want to be global.
Here's what you wrote about Garth. Garth remains, to my mind, an enigma, a flawed genius. He was a certified bastard and betrayer, but I missed him. How come?
I do miss him because, that we would, even through the years, a little bit of the years at Cineplex and those years at Livent when he was building his empire, I had very private moments with him where I would show him a myriad of commercials or things that I was working on. And when you were alone with him, He did want to know about your life. You did talk about show business. Who am I having those show business relationships in Canada with? Victor Lowy at Alliance? I don't think so. I mean, it's a different level of the business. And so I do miss the show business camaraderie. But it's on Garth's terms. The minute I made the film, you know, I became persona non grata. When I wrote the book, you know, I was the duplicitous bastard. So what are you going to do? I mean, that's life. I had a good education with him to a certain point, but onwards.
You say in the book that he wanted to buy out David Mirvish and take over the Mirvish empire. Could he have done that?
I mean, one of the questions that Garth asked me when he was in prison and plotting his comeback, he wanted to know what the big shows were on Broadway. You know, he knew that the Mirvish empire wasn't going to go on, you know, David Mirvish, 70, whatever, at some point. You know, with all those theaters they own, it's going to have to be some succession plan. Garth said, you know, if I were to buy the Mirvishes and make an offer when I got out, how much do you think they would want? How would I know that? I wouldn't have a clue, but that's how his mind was working. When I talked about, you know, Chita Rivera being in the film, he goes, oh, we should work on a one-woman show with her. I mean, that's Garth's mind, constantly going and extraordinarily creative.
Do you know if he and Mirvish have ever met?
Oh, absolutely.
Do they like each other?
No. I mean, you know, David might write in notes and letters on this, but, you know, they battled over the rights of Miss Saigon. When Garth didn't get Miss Saigon and the Mirvishes announced the Princess of Wales Theatre, Garth got into all kinds of fights with them and actually forced them to amend the building design, parking, to just fight them as well. No, they don't like each other. It's a complete, I mean, David Mirvish is a gentleman. He's a gentleman promoter, just like his father, Ed, was. You know, Garth is, you know, take no prisoners. I'm going to produce the best possible thing, and you're going to come even if you don't like it.
Okay, let's name some names here, Barry. And I'm going to give you a bunch of names that you tell stories about in the book, and I want you to just give me a line or two about each.
Yes.
First thing that pops into your head. Tony Bennett.
Oh, you know, elegant, classy, 90 years old, and still has a voice that he looked after. That is a musical instrument, class. Brioni suits, smells good, brilliant.
Frank Sinatra.
You know, an heir of the mob, scary, talented, didn't know when to say goodnight in terms of his career.
But your personal interaction with him?
My personal interaction with him, well, I worked on the last tour that he did. The voice had been gone because of the smoking and the drinking. I asked him one question backstage, what should I know about you that nobody knows? And he said, I do the crossword puzzle in pen.
I like that.
I love that.
That was a good one.
With a thumb in my neck.
Barry Manilow.
Hated me. I worked on Copacabana, the musical. That's enough said. And we met. I was going to produce film it for Broadway, and he took an immediate dislike to me, which some people say saves time. But he just decided I didn't like his music. And when we filmed the show, he was so impossible to deal with. I was sitting in the truck calling the cameras, and we put a sign on the truck that said there's room for only one Barry in this truck, and it wasn't him.
Did you like his music?
No.
Well, so he wasn't wrong.
But I didn't tell him that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dusty Cole.
Oh, Dusty Cole, co-founder of the Toronto Film Festival, cowboy hat, cigar smoking, Crown Royal drinking mentor. Miss him, talk to him daily. The ultimate Hollywood showbiz sage in this country. Great guy.
Prince Charles.
Prince Charles, you know, really underestimated. I work I'm on a board of the Prince's charities in Canada, helping challenged kids find work from challenged areas of Toronto. I've met him 3 or 4 times. Funny, charming, extraordinarily philanthropic, and again, underestimated. I hope he gets a shot at being king.
Jackie Mason.
Jackie Mason, you know, the great raconteur, hilarious right-wing political figure. We have lunch every couple of months in New York, and he orders, he has them take 7 different soups and blend them. And I get a wrap, a tuna and a whole wheat wrap. And he always says to me, what are you having whole wheat wrap for? And I said, well, it's light, it's healthy. And he goes, by the time you unwrap a wrap, it's 7 slices of bread. It's not healthy. I love him.
The late Dominic Dunn.
Dominic Dunn, who my late friend David Carr at the New York Times called a perfumed skunk. I think the original sort of Hollywood crime gossip guy, loses his daughter who's murdered and then gets convinced by Tina Brown, the editor of Vanity Fair, to write crime novels. Brilliant novelist. I think, I don't know that we have the time, but you know, towards the end of his life, we met for lunch at the iconic Four Seasons restaurant in New York. And I'd brought him a beautiful Mont Blanc pen engraved with his name. And I got to the restaurant early and got shown to a horrible table because it was under my name. And the maitre d', who was insane, and the owner of the restaurant came over and goes, "Who are you waiting for?" I said, "Dominic Dunn." And he slammed the table down with his fist, made 14 other people leave to take me to the table in the middle of the room. And there was, Gloria Vanderbilt, and there was, Betsy Bloomingdale, all the famous people he wrote about surrounding his table. Showed up an hour late, and for him, I can wait. It was great.
This is one of those instances where the hero turns out not to be quite as heroic as you'd wished. David Steinberg.
David Steinberg is, for your viewers who might not know, iconic Canadian stand-up comic, became famous for hosting and being a guest on the Smothers Brothers show, and then goes on to become one of the most sought-after sitcom directors. Curb Your Enthusiasm, Seinfeld, Mad About You, Friends, does everything. I got approached to make a film about his life, and what I didn't realize is that if you're making a film, if you're directing a film about a director, very difficult to do because they have their own view. So David, as much as I loved him, and we were like old souls when we talk about great comedians, was a very difficult process making the film. We would fight constantly about what should go in the film and what shouldn't, and ultimately, he didn't want any of the dark stuff. When the Smothers Brothers was canceled and he was thrown out, he had no work. He went into severe depression. Burt Reynolds saved him and brought him on to direct, I forget his show before Golden Girls that he had, Burt Reynolds' sitcom, Evening Shade, I think, or something like that. And David didn't want any of that. He wanted to be a very fluffy piece, and he would send me people to be interviewed, like Vidal Sassoon. What are we going to talk about? David's great hair? And that's what we did. Even shooting on the set of Curb Your Enthusiasm, David didn't want me talking to anybody. Larry David came out and he goes, "Hello, how are you?" And I said, "I'm here. I'm shooting a documentary about David Steinberg." "Don't you want to talk to me?" I said, "I do." And he lined everybody up. David would have never lined those people up. It's a great film, but it is a little bit of...
it's a little soft.
It's a little soft. Yeah. Not my best work.
Did it affect your friendship?
Maybe a little. He came to my book launch in LA that we had, and I turned to the publicist. I said, "He hasn't read the book." There's no way.
Conrad Black.
Conrad Black, I think a great writer. I'm into history. I did this film on Churchill, and he participated in the making of that film. We had mutual friends, and Conrad and I would meet for lunch once or twice a year, and it was a history lesson for me. It was an open book thesaurus. Famous for his vocabulary. So I found him fascinating, narcissistic, fascinating. And then he decided, when he got into his legal troubles and became a resident of, as he calls it, a guest of the American justice system, which is another word for prisoner 1-606897, he decided to take Eddie Greenspan on, who was his lawyer, and wrote shamelessly about him in the book. Eddie did the best he could. Conrad Black had often said he was a lawyer he can afford, said that behind the scenes. But Eddie Greenspan was more than a lawyer he could afford. He was a great lawyer. And he did the best he can, given that what was going on in the justice system. But when Conrad took Eddie on in the book, I felt horrible for Eddie. You didn't have to go down that road. You went to prison. People go to prison. You committed a crime. So be it.
How did the lunches end?
When I wrote an article about when Eddie Greenspan passed away, the National Post asked me to write a story about our relationship, because Eddie and I were very close, part of that whole Dusty Cold camp. We had lunch twice a week. And so I wrote a piece, and I said one of the great disappointments in Eddie's life was the way Conrad treated him in his book. And Conrad sent me an email 2 days later, and I wrote the piece in the National Post, Conrad's paper. And I'm sure he was furious with how that got in, and wrote a piece, and he said, our friendship has come to an end. What you wrote about Eddie Greenspan was ridiculous, and he was, not the lawyer that he was, and one of Conrad's, ridiculously overlong pieces, and you can consider our friendship at an end. And I wrote him back, and I said, our friendship consisted of having lunch once a month, where you ordered expensive bottles of white wine, and I paid for them. So I'm okay with our friendship being at an end. And then he wrote me back one word, which was the C word that doesn't end in a J. So that was the end of that. I won't tell you what my response was. My wife was sitting next to me when I got that email. She goes, "Don't respond to him. Don't respond to him," but I had to.
Does your wife like it the way you imitate her, just like that?
She doesn't.
She doesn't.
No, I'm getting that from Don Rickles, who used to always refer to his wife Barbara as a woman that sort of lies in bed with her jewelry signaling airplanes. But that's not my wife.
Okay. We should do a little word here on Eddie Greenspan, because you say his death this, of course, the great criminal lawyer whose death you say affected you as much as your father's. How come?
And in some cases more. My father left my world before I achieved any real progress in my career and saw the big stuff that I would have liked him to see. Eddie was this man who was so brilliant and taught me so much, but yet we got together, twice a week, had cigars, and he cared about my life. He helped me through difficult relationship situations, difficult business situations. He was always there for me. And I knew he wasn't in the greatest of health, but his death was sudden. We were away, and it was, Christmas Eve, and it was riveting. It's still very difficult for me to talk about him because he was a father to me. I'm very lucky. I had several fathers, Dusty, my own, and certainly Eddie Greenspan, but I can't get that one out of my head. I mean, just an incredible man who could, as they say, dine with kings and sweep streets. I mean, he was just an amazing man.
Barry, I am leaving for last one of the most notorious people that you wrote about in your book. 6 years ago, you did a documentary on the life of one of the biggest movers and shakers in Hollywood. The subject of that documentary is suddenly in the news for all the wrong reasons. I want you to start by telling us about your experience making, unauthorized, the Harvey Weinstein Project.
Harvey Weinstein, I mean, that is the topic of the day, isn't it? My God, you can't go anywhere today in any city in the world without talking about Harvey Weinstein and the tsunami of that he's created. I wanted to make a film about him because he was the man who reinvented indie cinema, some of the great films of all time, from Cinema Paradiso to Pulp Fiction, and so it had to be done. He did not want the film made, and I can look back now and say maybe he was worried about what I'd uncover and fought me like Russell Crowe in The Gladiator. He just did not want this film made. I made it ultimately, and there were little whiffs around the shooting and the sets. People would say to me, "Are you going to talk about Harvey and the women? Are you going to talk about Harvey and his reputation with women?" And I would probe, and nobody would go one step further. And so I'd investigate and research a little bit more, but nobody would say anything.
So rumors, but that's it.
Rumors, and not to the degree of rumors that were somewhat criminal in nature, or the degrees of harassment that have since come out. So, that was quite something on that end of it. But I made the film, and then he was successful in having the seventh samurai blow on this, in that he had a film studio in the U.S., IFC, which stands for Independent Film Cinema, and there's nothing independent about independent film cinema. They bought it on Harvey's instructions, re-edited it, and never released it. They released it on a digital channel called Sundance Now, which disappeared. You need a St. Bernard and a blizzard to find my film. So he got the last laugh, in that the film was never released.
And he still owns it, I guess.
Well, IFC does.
The IFC
has the original film. The only place the film was seen somewhat unedited was in Canada, on that end of it. And since that article, since the scandal broke, I've felt this incredible moral obligation to go back and look at this film again.
Have you had any contact with him since you made that documentary?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's the old story. I don't know if it's Art of War, but keep your enemies close. So he never knew what B-roll I had. He never knew what I'd uncovered.
B-roll meaning the other footage.
The other footage that I had. He never knew what I had uncovered in the interviews with various people. So he always kept me somewhat close. When I launched my book, he gave me the greatest gift by objecting to certain things in the book, which, of course, made a cover of The Hollywood Reporter, and he threw me a lavish book party in New York, and my own mother was concerned about, why is he throwing you a party? And I said, what does it matter? The book's been written. If he wants to throw me a party, let him throw me a party. And he bought a film that I was working on 2 weeks before the scandal broke, and it took me weeks to get the film back because I just didn't want to be associated with the Weinstein brand.
And in any of your interviews that you did for that documentary, did the subject of his predatory nature come up in any of the interviews you did with other people?
No, and that's the sad thing, because it was, Steve, at the end of the day, my making the film about Harvey was so public in the trades, in the New York Times, and I would have hoped that somebody seeing this would have said, okay, I'm going to come forward and give Barry his rosebud moment and tell the story about when Harvey did this or that. Nobody came forward.
Everybody was still too closed up at that point.
They're nervous about the industry. I mean, at the end of the day, do I think that the industry is going to change? No. I mean, this is a headline right now.
Even with this, you don't think things are going to change?
I don't. I think certain people will think twice about their behavior. Others that are sick, like Harvey, can't help themselves.
Now that this has all become public. What efforts are you undertaking to reclaim the documentary you made and try to put a postscript in it that covers off all of this?
It's a great question. I mean, my original plan was to go to IFC, who controls pretty much international rights, and say, let's work together. Let's right the wrong and put in what should have been put in this film. They have no interest. They control the rights. I've tried all sorts of interesting ways.
How can they have no interest? This thing is, well, this would garner a huge audience right now.
It implicates them because they know what they wanted edited out. They know that they tried to soften Harvey's character or some of the references to his character in the film. So they don't want to have anything to do with it. And it's too bad. So I've decided to basically go back and not add 11 minutes to a film and not change the last chapter because I just don't think it does the issue justice. So I'm going to go back and I'm making a new film called Infamous that looks at Harvey and looks at the industry as a whole. The people that were complicit, the accusers, the journalists, and look at the business. And that's what I'm working on right now.
And when can we look forward to seeing that?
I think early in the new year is my plan.
Barry, I'm going to give a warning to the people watching at home right now, just because I'm going to quote you, and there's a little blue language in this quote, but it's your quote, so I'm going to do it verbatim.
Yeah.
You ask, why are there so many assholes in showbiz? What's the answer to that?
I think they're all frustrated artists, and they're all somewhat insecure. And so you bring that together. The assholes are generally people that are extraordinarily effective and creative and artistic themselves, but they can't help themselves. And we all have a little of that. There's, you know, I'm sure you can have a long line from your studio downtown saying that Barry Avrich is an asshole. It's tough in this business to sort of navigate and keep your vision on track without having a little of that in you. It's tough. I mean, I deal with it constantly. And I will say, Steve, not soapboxing that, you know, we live in a country that really doesn't appreciate or celebrate success. I will be on this show and there'll be 42 people who tweet and go, oh, you know, why him? Or what's that? Or self-promoter. I couldn't give a damn if anybody calls me anything like that. I mean, at the end of the day, you're born with a brand and you better promote if you want to be in this business.
There's another line you use in the book. Is everyone in showbiz a foul-mouthed, temper tantrum, threatening idiot? I guess the answer is yes.
Most are. There are exceptions. The only real exception I've met is a guy named Ron Meyer, who's the chairman of Universal Studios, who was, you know, who's been another great mentor. Didn't start off that way, and literally calls every couple of months to just check in on my career. And he is a mensch in Hollywood, and everyone says that. It's very unusual. I mean, you know, the titans of Hollywood, the Jack Warners, and you know, all of these guys were just maniacs. Louis B. Mayer, but you know, Ron Meyer, what an amazing man.
So, I mean, let's finish up on this then, because if this business that you love so much is filled with foul-mouthed, threatening, temper tantrum a-holes, why do you love it so much?
You're creating art. You're creating art that people see daily. You know, I love it. I have no regrets. I wouldn't change any of it. And I've stayed here. I've stayed here in this country. I haven't moved. Many opportunities to go. I love being here. We're surrounded by great talent. We just need to elevate it, for God's sakes, and celebrate it. And the last thing I'll say is we have to stop vilifying Canadians that move to LA and work. Let's bring them back and do more with them.
Barry, I got to tell you, the book is very funny. It's
Thank
a very
you.
good read. I really enjoyed it. Moguls, Monsters, and Madmen. An Uncensored Life in Show Business. Thanks so much for coming into TVO tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit TVO.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.